Hey guys, Becker here. So as you can see, we have some fancy new graphics to aid our discussion of intervals today, and we're going to talk about what intervals are and why we use them and how they're helpful. So what an interval is the perceived relative distance between two pitches. So there'll be a lower pitch and a higher pitch, and the interval we think of as the distance between them. So we generally think of intervals as being consonant or dissonant. And loosely speaking, this is a measure of the complexity of the ratios of the frequencies of the two pitches. So if those form a 2-to-1 ratio, then we call that interval an octave. If they form a 3-to-2 ratio, we call that interval a perfect fifth. And so on and so forth, from simple ratios to more complicated ratios, like a minor second is a 16-to-15 ratio. So it's very complicated, and so it sounds dissonant. The picture is a little bit more complicated than that, but basically that gives you the idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about each one of the simple intervals. Those are intervals that are smaller than an octave. The intervals that are larger than an octave, it basically just plays that same pattern of consonance and dissonance over and over again in the repeating octaves with the slightly, it's less urgent. As the intervals get further apart, it gets harder. The consonant or dissonant becomes less of an issue. So here we're going to make a table of intervals that has the name of each of the intervals, the symbol that we're going to use to describe it, the type of interval, whether it's a consonance or a dissonance, and then its various aliases. I simplify it and give each interval one name, but the older system has multiple names for each interval. Unison, the minor second, the major second, the minor third, the major third, the perfect fourth, the tritone, the perfect fifth, the minor sixth, the major sixth, the minor seventh, the major seventh, and the perfect octave. We see certain patterns here. We see that starting at the unison, it goes from an open consonance to a strong dissonance and then gradually moves through mild dissonances and consonances until we get to the open consonants. And then at the perfect fourth, and then the tritone is an open dissonance, and then picks up again with open consonants and then gradually becomes less consonant through the major seventh until we get back to the perfect octave. Our interval table also allows us to look at the complementarity of the intervals. Basically, complementary intervals are intervals that add up to an octave. So we see that the unison and the perfect octave are complementary. The minor second and the major seventh are complementary, as are the major second and minor seventh, the minor third and the major sixth, the major third and the minor sixth, the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth, and the tritone is actually complementary to itself, which is an interesting property that'll lead us to some pretty cool places when we pick it up next time. So I hope you've enjoyed treatment of intervals, and I hope the snazzy graphics help make it a little bit easier to understand and to see some of the patterns that are at work. So that's all for today, and we'll see you next time.